there's a Korean drama known as rethink, and it's like a slice of life office situated drama. But the only reason I know about it, and the only reason I'm talking about it right now, is it features a main character who is an ex-Go player, professional Go player, I guess. And he has given up his Go dreams to pursue the office life. And you follow his adventures in being awkward and having spent so much time in the Go world, not knowing how to socialize. And, it's a little bit, cheesy. But I really enjoyed the couple of episodes. Oh, I think I watched a little more than a couple episodes. I enjoyed the few episodes that I saw. But definitely not something that you should watch if all you're there for is the Go, because there's not a whole lot of that. There are a couple scenes where they do reference the game and kind of use it as a way to study the character, but overall it's just kind of like a quirky, fun show with a little bit of romance, a little bit of comedy. I enjoyed what I saw of it, but I'm bringing it up because apparently it has ended after 12 years, and I didn't even know it was still going. I totally stopped watching after a while, but also apparently rethink means incomplete life, and I think that might even be in the title of the show. I don't know if it's a Korean Go term, though. It's not something I've ever heard any Go player use, but incomplete life is something that, as Go players, we understand what that means. Welcome to Starpoint, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board. I was in San Jose this past weekend for a little trip, and San Jose has its very own Japantown, which, I mean, if you're a listener from outside of California, just a little context, San Jose is a little south of San Francisco, and San Francisco has its own Japantown. I had mentioned that one in maybe, I think, the first episode or was it the first episode? I don't remember. Anyway, San Francisco has its own Japantown, which is home to the San Francisco Go Club. But San Jose has a Japantown of its own, which is surprising to have two Japantowns so close to each other. The San Jose Japantown is a lot smaller, but it was nice. I got to explore a little bit, just with some friends, having some fun. But the first thing I noticed when I opened the car door and stepped out into the Japantown of San Jose was a concrete bench with a chessboard etched onto it. I mean, I'm a Go player, but I love chess as well. I got super excited. I mean, I assume it's a chessboard. It could easily be a checkers board, but I think what they were going for was a chessboard, and I'd never really seen a chessboard on a bench before. Usually you see them on tables in parks, and I thought it was great. I thought the idea of playing chess while sitting on a bench is great if you remember to bring the pieces. There were no pieces in sight, so my girlfriend and I just picked up a game of invisible chess, and we pretended to move the pieces, and neither of us are very skilled, so I was actually surprised at how far we got and agreeing on which pieces were where, but eventually we just kind of threw our hands up. Okay. As I walk through Japantown, I see more concrete benches, and I think, hey, maybe there are more chessboards. Lo and behold, I look at one of the benches, and it's what appears to be a Go board etched onto this bench. So it seems that the theme of this city, or this little Japantown area, was to have all these concrete benches with different board game patterns etched onto them. There was a shogi board, although I don't play shogi, so I don't know if it was a correct shogi board. There was what I think it was supposed to be a Chinese chessboard because it had like a river running down the middle, but it was definitely lacking a lot of lines. I don't play Chinese chess. I do not know the rules to Chinese chess, but I have seen a board, and that is not how it's supposed to look. So I am pretty sure that one is maybe it was a little hard for the contractor to etch out all those lines. I don't know. But when I saw the Go board, first thing I do is I run my fingers down the Go board, and there were no start points, by the way, just to start. I'm like, okay, no start points, no big deal. So I run my fingers down this etched Go board and count the lines. And guess what? 20 lines, not 19. It's a 20 by 20 Go board. And of course, we're, as Go players, we just can't have it all. I think, and here's my theory, what happened. Somebody told this contractor, hey, you should etch a Go board onto this bench. It's really simple. It's just a 19 by 19 grid. And guess what you do if you're a contractor who does not know anything about Go and you're told to make a 19 by 19 grid? You make 19 squares by 19 squares, which results in 20 lines by 20 lines. Not the fault of the contractor, definitely the fault of whoever was communicating that. Or another possibility, which is that there's another game out there that uses a 20 by 20 or a 20 by 20 grid or a 19 by 19 square grid that I don't know of. If you do know of it, please comment that. But I really don't think so, because Go is such an important game in Japanese culture. It's got to be a Go board, right? A little sad, I'm a little sad, but I'm also I'm more happy than sad, though. More happy to see the Go board than sad about it being wrong. That's how it is. Okay, so in San Jose, we're just exploring Japantown. You know what? I also saw a real Go board in a little shop with like a bunch of like interesting artistic Japanese stuff, like ceramics and little things like that. I saw a couple Go stone bowls for like $20. Not a bad deal, although I'm not in the market for bowls. They weren't particularly high quality either. And then there was a set as well. I just like seeing Go things, but I mean, it was also not a very nice set. It was a foldable one. I think the board may have been a pretty nice one, but the stones themselves they looked like almost like magnetic stones without the magnets. They look really cheap and small. But just thought I'd mention that. While I was in San Jose, I had a chance to talk to my friend who is about a one-dan player, and he's been listening to the show as well, and he made some comments about what he liked about it. And one thing he asked me was about the inner game of tennis. Now, this is a book that I mentioned a while back, as it is not just a tennis book, but a sports psychology book. It's very popular, not only in tennis circles, but in all sorts of different disciplines, because it just kind of attacks this idea of the psychological ideas of learning these things so well. People have kind of grabbed onto this book to kind of learn more about that. And he asked me kind of what was my little spark notes for the book. And I'm pretty sure I've explained this before, but the one takeaway that I have, because it's been a while since I've read it, but the one takeaway that I told him about was the whole concept of the two selves, the self A and the self B, where you have the self A who is very conscious, very verbal and vocal, the one that's telling you this is good and this is bad, you should do this, you should try to do that. And especially in the context of tennis, it's more about like, oh, you should put your arm here, you should keep your wrist relaxed, you should do this. And there are a plethora of things that this voice is going to tell you to do, because these are things you should be doing when you learn. But there's another self called self B, as the book describes. This self is more subconscious. It's underneath, it's in the shadows, and it's the part of you that really understands how to play the game. And so the idea being like trying so hard with your self A to instruct yourself to do things will maybe sometimes get in the way of you actually learning how to do those things. And sometimes it's better to back off a little bit, empty your mind a bit, and let self B learn. And he brought up an interesting point, which is, does this apply to Go? Because it's more of a mental game. You can kind of see how this may apply to a physical game like tennis or golf, where constant instruction from your head may kind of make your body position go into like very artificial movements, and they may not be the best for flowing through your swing. But in Go, it's a purely mental game. There's no movement involved other than picking up the stone, which is usually not difficult. But I argued that it's still the same concept. I think that in Go, there is still a self-B that needs to learn and experience. I think there are a lot of things in Go that come to us as true understanding underneath everything. And a lot of it we can't even explain. A lot of it we can't verbalize. And that stuff comes just from experience, from being able to be present in the moment of the game and let the learning happen for self-B. I think we do definitely need a lot of self-A in our game, but self-B also is an important part. So depending on who you are, right? Self-A people always telling them how to telling themselves how to play the game, always self-coaching. Maybe you could back off for a second and let self-B come through. Okay, so that was his question for me. I had a question for him, because I was curious about his path to 1 Dan. I mentioned that, hey, you took a few, I remember you mentioning that you were on KGS and you did some of the subscription stuff or paid classes or something like that. And he said, yeah, I did that for maybe 6 months or so. And he said that he found it helpful. I was not someone who did that on KGS. Definitely during the KGS days, I was definitely not as into the Go. But I believe they were just kind of group classes where you can ask questions and things like that. I'm not really sure. I'd have to ask more about it. But on his improvement path to 1 Dan, I kind of, asked him, what did you do to improve at the game? And he kind of said that a lot of it came from books, which kind of goes against what I mentioned in the books episode, where I really emphasized, experience is king, and that books, I don't know how far they'll take you, but it seems like a lot of people really feel that books are the way, including my friend. And he said that there were 2 key books that he used, and those 2 books were Lessons in the Fundamentals of Go and The Fundamental Principles of Go. Very similar titles. One of them is by Yilun Yang, and the other one is, I keep forgetting his name, but it's Toshiro Kageyama, I believe. I'm just really bad at remembering names sometimes. Lessons in the Fundamentals of Go. Toshiro Kageyama. Okay, no, I'm fine. I'm good. That's correct. Okay, I had some criticism about that one book, and I think I kind of figured out why. So, okay, maybe before I talk about why I had some criticisms of that book, or why those criticisms came up, I'll continue telling you about my friend's response to, or the conversation I had with him in terms of getting to the strength that he was. And I said, well, okay, that's surprising that you cite these very abstract concept books as key elements to your path to being stronger, because I have always known you as someone who has very good reading skills. And he said, yep, I've noticed that I do tend to have a little bit higher reading skills than other people. And he didn't really mention doing, life, really deep reading and life and death studies as the fundamental aspects of his learning. So I thought that was very interesting. And I was like, well, how do you explain that? It's like, so you basically focus more on the abstract concepts, the strategic concepts? And he said, yes. And in regards to the strong reading skills, he said, I don't know exactly how that happened, which really, to me, sounds a lot like self-B. Somehow was able to shine in all of the learning that he was doing. And so, I mean, a lot of the times when we learn things, you can't explain how that happened. Honestly, so much of my stuff, like learning Go, I don't know how I learned like 90% of the stuff I learned. Like, I've been doing things to improve my game for so long. You can't really exactly pinpoint what you did that made you better or made you understand a certain concept finally. Those moments of clarity are actually quite rare in my experience, where you actually know, like, oh, I didn't get this concept before, now I get it because you told me about it, and now I'm better. Like, I think those clear moments are so rare. It's more likely that you're gonna be like just playing one day and realizing, wait, I know this is good, but not having any memory of like why that was good. And so it just kind of made me think a lot more about my current attitude towards improvement, because in the more recent times, I've been very focused on the training aspect, the sumego, the reading, and just playing games again and again. All this stuff, the very experiential stuff, which is very important, mind you. Not saying that it's not, but it made me realize, like, okay, well, why haven't I been studying more about the abstract concepts, the ones and the opening moves and the direction of play stuff? Like, why did I let go of that? And I think what happened was, a long time ago, when I was starting out playing Go, my instinct in terms of studying Go was to gravitate towards these abstract concepts, the strategy, the big picture ideas. This is the stuff that excited me, at least back then. It made me think like, wow, there's such a big world out there. How can I control this chaos on the board? And I really liked learning about what you're supposed to do in each situation and thinking critically about their very big strategic ideas. And so I consumed books like Lessons in the Fundamentals of Go. And maybe I did learn some stuff. Maybe I did learn some stuff when I read these books and watched these YouTube videos. But I think my understanding was limited, for sure, because I didn't have the technical skills to back them up. I didn't have the tactics and the reading ability. I didn't have the basic life and death understanding to advance in a lot of these concepts, but I did maybe understand some key components of it, which did help. Okay, so I come to this point where I'm realizing, oh, all this abstract study is not helping me. What can I do to up my game? And I switch gears and I say, you know what? I'm going to play more games. I'm going to do life and death problems, and I'm going to do all this experiential stuff. And I got results. I did that stuff and I got results, and I had been climbing and climbing and climbing, and then it slowed down. And so having this conversation with my friend makes me kind of rethink my current paradigm, right? Makes me kind of think, okay, I've been always touting like, oh, you got to play games, you got to do life and death problems, you got to really study these things. And, you know, don't focus too much on the big picture stuff, because that stuff maybe doesn't matter as much. My revised position maybe is that now that I've developed more of the technical skills and understanding that I need, it's time to go back and switch gears again. It's kind of like, let's say that you are listening to a lecture on a very complicated subject. Like maybe you're listening to a physics lecture and they're using all of these terms that you don't understand, but they're saying some things that you do kind of get. You're understanding like, oh, I know what gravity means, yeah. And then you kind of understand certain things and you do learn a couple things, but you're kind of just sitting there like, there's so much stuff here that I don't understand. I think it's time for me to learn some of these words. And so you go off and you study all these terms and you study these ideas in terms of vocabulary, right? You just learn what certain things mean. and then you go back to the lecture, or sorry, and then you keep studying these words, and your vocabulary keeps expanding, but you don't have any new ideas, right? And then it's time to go back to listen to the lectures again and see if you understand these big picture ideas, knowing these new words. I'm sure that pattern is better than going one way or another. Sitting and listening, or reading, maybe reading is a better example, like reading books with like all the, like where every other word is a word that you don't know, may not be the most helpful thing to do. Reading the dictionary 24 hours a day may also not be the best thing to do. You need to do both. You need to study the reading, the vocabulary, and then you need to study the big ideas that are presented by the vocabulary. So maybe what I did was I spent a little bit too much time reading the dictionary, and now it's time for me to see if I can absorb more material with all the experience that I have in mind, that I have gained over the past, I don't know, however long period of time that I've been trying to improve at the game. And so that's the thing I want to kind of emphasize here is maybe you're in a rut. Maybe you're kind of not sure of how to move on from where you are, because you have had a period of success, except you're trying those ideas and it's just not producing the results. And maybe you think that, oh, okay, it's just going to be harder from here on out. Or maybe it's time to switch gears, whether you are someone who has been studying a lot in one way or another, it's time to study a different way. Because I think that, as I assume most of us listening to this podcast are adult learners of the game, not people who have been trained by any kind of Go Institute or anything like that. We don't have much time to study this game. So although it would be ideal to spend like 9 hours a day studying all the aspects of Go, what we realistically have to do as adult learners is we have to juggle things, and we have to kind of switch back and forth between things. And so maybe there is something there where if you are studying one way, it's time to switch gears if it's not working anymore, and seeing if that period of study that you had with that one way can inform switching back, because it may have not worked before, and that's why you're discouraged from it, and that's why you think, oh, okay, it's a waste of time. But you've learned since then, and so going back to it may actually be a good idea. We all want a good Go teacher to help us on our Go journey, but not all of us can do that for whatever reason. It could be you can't find the right time for a Go teacher, or you just can't find the right fit for you. Well, GoMagic.org might be the next best thing. They have a huge library of interactive courses, and you can take them at your own pace. So if that sounds like something that you want to do, go to GoMagic.org and use my code STARPOINT to get 25% off your first purchase at checkout. With all that said, I'm not going to stop my regular training where I do reading problems and Sumego and life and death study. No, I actually want to intensify those things further. But I do want to bring back a neglected part of my studies. And I'm going to take a closer look at my old books, The Fundamental Principles of Go by Yilin Yang, and the Lessons in the Fundamentals of Go by Kageyama. And I'm going to try to take these books slowly, really question whether I understand every detail of what they're trying to say, and apply that to my own games. And hopefully that yields results. And with that, it's time for the DDK Advice Corner. And the tip of the day is check your connections. Sometimes we get so involved in a game and there's a giant group that we have, and we just assume it's strong and alive, and maybe it is, but we forget the Go board changes as the game goes on, and what may have once been a sturdy connection may have whittled down to something a lot weaker. Make sure your groups are connected and that cut isn't available to your opponent. So make sure you fix those cuts. Make sure you're always making sure that all your groups are well connected, or they have space to make eyes. Because really, there's only two ways to live. You got to make eyes, or you got to have space to run out and connect to another group or make an eye in some other place. And so if you're not connected, that could be the end of the game for you. So check your connections. And now it's time for Go News. And the first piece of Go News I have is Alex Chi falls to Ichiriki Ryo in the 15th Chunlan Cup. So condolences to Alex Chi. Congratulations for making to the Chunlan Cup, but could not take out Ichiriki Ryo. He's in good company, though. Shin Jin-seo was also eliminated from the ranks of the Chunlan Cup by a player named Yang Kai-won 9-dan. And so the quarterfinals have been determined, and there will be between Park Jung-hwan versus Gu Tse-hao, Byun Sang-il versus Mi Wei-ting, Shibano Toramaru versus Ding Hao, Lee Xuan-hao versus Yang Kai-wen. So this is a pretty Chinese-dominated Chunlan Cup quarterfinals, and it won't be for a while. It'll be held on December 17th and 19th, and the finals will be held next year. So it's a long one here. So we're in for the long haul. I'll try to keep you guys updated as the results come out. In other news, an agreement was signed between the KBA, with the Korean Baduk Association, and the Korean Kiwon, and Yeongnam County, which is a county in Korea, to establish a national Baduk training institute. Lee Chang-ho was also present, legendary player of Korea, and they agreed to invest 45 billion won into this project. So that's like 33 million US dollars. That's a lot of money for this training institute, which I don't think there are many details on exactly what that will entail, but that's pretty exciting. There was a funny little there's like a one comment on this article that was like a Korean person kind of complaining where their tax money was going. But other than that, I mean, for Go people out there, it's good news to see things being invested in the game of Go, where we have had kind of somewhat recently in the past people backing off funding Go. This is kind of a good thing. Well, I'm excited to see if that training institute comes into fruition. And in other news, Yang Din-shin defeats Ichiriki Ryo in the China-Japan Agon Cup. Now, this is an interesting Go tournament that I just learned about. So the China-Japan Agon Cup is a single game event between the winner of the Agon Kiriyama Cup in Japan and the winner of the Ahan Tongshan Cup in China. These cups are sponsored by a Agon Shu, which is like a newish Buddhist movement. Like, I think it started in the 70s or something. But anyway, they started these tournaments in Japan it started in 1994, and then in China it started in 1999. And so they have basically been holding these contests between these two countries, and then like the winner of each country's version of this cup will come together to face off in the China-Japan Agon Cup. And it's a fast event. Like it's like 30 seconds. I'm not really sure exactly how it was. It seems like it's like 30 seconds with like 10 periods of 1 minute byoyomi or something like that. I'm not really sure. But anyway, it's within that ballpark of timing. And it started where the kind of culmination where the China-Japan version of the cup started in January 2000. And the first two that faced off were Kobayashi Koichi, who bested Ma Xiaochun. And overall, China leads in the score between China and Japan 18-6, and they're currently on a 12-game streak. So it's been a long time coming for Japan. Unfortunately, not this year for Ichiriki Ryo, as Yang Din-shin defeated him in this cup this time. And finally, we got Chinese A-League news. So Park Jung-hwan and Ko-jae, so this is a weird thing too. Like, the Chinese A-League apparently allows non-Chinese players to play in it, and it's like a team event too. I'm not too familiar with it, but based on my basic research, so Koje and Park Jung-hwan, two very legendary players, were in a team together. So it's like not even like separated by country, but these two players were in a team together, and they had their team took the final championship for the Chinese A-League, defeating the runner-up team who featured Ding Hao and Byun Sang-il, Sha Chen-kun as well. So so Park Jung-hwan and Koje shared a victory, and there were some pictures of them celebrating with drinks, and it's very, very nice to see them getting, you often see professional Go players just staring each other down at the Go board, being all stressed out. And it's nice to see them kind of, having some fun and taking it easy. And so it was just a nice little thing to see. And with that, it's time for listener mail. All right, we got some responses for the musical training episode. Crispy Toast writes in and says, great episode. I played the alto, I assume alto saxophone, through middle school and high school, and was also in the jazz band, so I agree with everything about scales being something that matters completely of how you learn them. Do you have any recommendations for sorted Go problems? The best I have found so far is Sumego Dragon. Do you think there is any musical equivalent to the mid-game? With music, you can go back and drill the individual bars that are causing you trouble on a song, but mid-game is hard to simulate. The only thing I can think of is sight reading, but even then, I'm not sure. Thanks for writing in, Crispy Toast. You got a couple questions here. So the first one about the recommendations for sorted Go problems. I unfortunately don't have that many good recommendations regarding this. I have heard good things about the book's graded Go problems for beginners, but make sure you take a peek through the book to make sure it's the level that you want to be at, because if you start from the beginning, it's actually super basic. So it can be really good for you if you're just starting out, but I assume you're a little bit past that. So that one is good. And then the other one that I think of is Sumego Hero, which is great. I think Sumego Hero has a good collection of a lot of different sorted Go problems. And then the one that I don't think people know as much about is the Takumi Go Academy. Just search Takumi Go Academy and you should see a site that is like 1200ego.com. And then on that site, there are lists of Tsuji and different levels of Go problems and stuff. I think he has a really good collection set up there. And then your second question, do you think there's any musical equivalent to the mid-game? And then you mentioned about going back to drill the bars that are causing you trouble on a song. And I think there's something actually really quite analogous to that in the Go world, where you can do a review of your game and find a little spot problem area. And what I've been doing actually recently is I've been extracting those problem areas and drilling them, like going back and reviewing them again and again. And so it's not just like a one-time review, but I mean, maybe that's something that's kind of close to it. All right, thanks for writing in, Crispy Toast. And then Farran6955 writes, what I find quirky about Meijin, in the parentheses, the master of Go, is that I very much suspect that hero and villain are reversed depending on your classical Japanese versus modern Western perception. Take care. Thanks for writing in. I didn't know there was an alternate title. I assume you're calling it Meijin because there's another, maybe in Japanese it's just called Meijin and they translate it to the master of Go. I honestly think that would be a really cool title for the book too, just Meijin, just straight up Meijin. Yeah, that'd be cool. And then the whole villain and hero thing, when I read the book, I feel like I honestly, if you really had to put me on the spot and ask me who I thought the hero and villain were, I don't know. It's actually really hard to answer. Like, there are definitely moments where I felt the master himself was the villain, holding on to his old ways. But then there are other parts where the younger guy felt like the villain because he was kind of upsetting the tradition. I don't know. I don't think I had a very clear answer to that. I felt like kind of ambiguous. That's maybe why I liked it so much. Interesting comment. Thank you, Fran. And then Esmele Flashcards 994 says, Cool channel. Your enthusiasm for Go is contagious. If you or any of your followers ever want to play correspondence games, I'm at OGS Orlo Club 3don. Well, there you go. All you Starpoint listeners, go chat up Orlo. That's Orlo, or sorry, Orlo Cub. ORLOCUB 3don on OGS for a correspondence game. Maybe you'll see an invite from me at some point. Thank you for the offer, and thank you for your kind words. I am enthusiastic about the game of Go. I love Go, and that's why I started this podcast. So thanks for listening. And for the question of the week, I want to know, especially to the Don players, but if you're not a Don player, I still want to know, what did you do to get to the level you're at? What do you think is the main ingredient? I want to know your answers. I expect them to be very varied. So if you want to answer that question, or you want to share a story with me, I can read your comment or message on this podcast episode, on the next podcast episode. If you go ahead and share that comment on Reddit or YouTube, or you can email me directly at starpointbaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com. I would also appreciate a subscribe and a like if you haven't already on YouTube. If you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. A special thank you to Chris M. and Jeffrey H. for supporting Starpoint. And one time I got locked out of my apartment and I had to call the locksmith. And while he was working on the thing, I found out he was a Go player, which was great, but it made me all the sadder when he just randomly decided to run away. And it turns out, when I asked him for the new key, he thought I said Tanuki. Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.